Well, hello and welcome back after a long hiatus of grooming. Oh, I'm so happy to be back and getting this done. And you'll notice I'm not wearing a jacket. Or maybe you haven't noticed yet. I'm not. So up on the stand, we have Mr. Phineas, our big baby daddy for the year. He is long overdue for grooming, but it's not as bad as I thought it might be. So, happy day there. He's starting to actually shed his cashmere already for the season, which is interesting. But we have so much to catch up on. So as of recording this, it is Valentine's Day 2026. And like any good married couple, we are spending our Valentine's Day in the barn. It is the first day that temperatures are really above 40 degrees Fahrenheit since the end of January. So 3 weeks straight-ish. Somebody will quote me, right? It was probably not quite 21 days. It might have been 19 days, 18 days. I don't care. It felt like forever. And during that time, I couldn't groom the goats. Let me rephrase. I could groom the goats, but it would have been an absolutely terrible experience for all of us, them, me, and, both of our psyches. So I chose not to do that, which means I'm about 3 weeks behind on my grooming schedule. And that's not terrible. I've certainly fallen further behind over the years, but it's also not my favorite way to be, right? I really do prefer to keep up on it if I can. Thankfully, most of Phineas's body is good. He's just got some mess up here at his neck. And it's not that terrible. It's not like it is in spring when I spent hours and hours grooming him. So that's good. Other things that are happening here in the barn, and you might see Tonka come visit, you might see Farm Hubby walk by, is we are getting the kidding pen set up. I shouldn't say the kidding pen, the kidding stall. So we are right on kidding season. Which has me in a bit of a panic because I really would like to get the girls groomed before they kid, but the boys were longer overdue, so I have to do the boys first. It was decisions. Decisions were made, and they were made, and they're going to add stress to my life, but decisions were made. So we're setting up the kidding stall, which means getting some pens established. It's already been cleaned. That I did well in advance. So it was clean and dry and ready to rock and roll. We just need to get our pens up. We need to get them secured so that they can't be knocked down. I'll go into more detail as kids arrive, as we go through the process, what our process is and how we manage it. But I've talked before about kidding pens and how we use them for bonding periods and not really much more. I let the girls kid naturally with the herd as opposed to segregating them and having them do it on their own. So that is super exciting, though. First due dates are not until the 24th of February, so we're 10 days away as of this recording. And actually, since these get published on Saturdays, and this is a Saturday, we're only going to be about 3 days away, and we might even have babies on the ground if they came a little bit early when you see this. So, that's just where we're at, right? So that is super, super exciting. Also super exciting is the weather. We still have a ton of snow on the ground. A lot of it is still crusty ice and miserable stuff, but the pond has water. It has a pretty nice sized swimming hole. We've got, all sorts of melting happening, which is making mud holes. So that'll be the next challenge to deal with. But for now, I'd rather mud than ice and snow. Once I'm sick of the mud, I'll be hoping for a freeze to solidify it again. But for now, that's where we're at. In other news, you may have noticed that I am wearing my new kidding season hat, right? I told you the last groom, and gosh, it feels like so long ago already. Actually, probably was almost a month ago at this point. The hat I was wearing in that one, that was the purple hat, was last year's kidding season hat. I make myself a new kidding season hat every year. I mean, it only takes me a few hours to make a hat. I can use some scrap yarn from other projects, and it gives me a chance to have a nice, luxurious new hat every year, and it just makes me feel special. This one's extra special because I I stumbled across the pattern inadvertently from a designer I know and I like, or at least I'm familiar with. I shouldn't say I know. And she entitled it a title that, you know, was inspired by the TV series Schitt's Creek. So if anybody's familiar with that TV series, this hat was inspired by that. And it is titled, the pattern anyway, is titled the Dipshit Hat, which is hilarious because it's just got so many uses, right? So as of right now, I am wearing my brand new dipshit hat. Probably makes me a dipshit. I'm out here in the 40-degree weather thinking it's summertime, no coat, just my lighter weight coveralls and not my winter weight. So yeah, you know what? I saw it. I said, all right, that is the one I want for this year. I've made it using a wool silk blend, and so it's super soft and super comfy. It's lightweight. It doesn't feel like there's a big old bulky thing on my head, and that'll get me through kidding season this year, I hope. There have been times that the hat has not made it through kidding season because the kids have pulled it off, or it fell into the mud, or other things. So we'll see. Right now, it's keeping me toasty warm while I do some grooming. In other toasty warm news, remember those viral barn pants I talked to you about? The ones where, gosh, I just couldn't resist the advertising anymore. So good on them and the company for spamming my Instagram and my Facebook with an ad every 10 seconds. I finally fell for it. And then they shipped from China, even though it was a UK company. So things were not looking good. Well, let me tell you, I may have gotten lucky, right? There have been absolutely reports of quality problems and inconsistency with this brand that, had I researched it before I bought it, probably would have stopped me from buying them. But woo, I am glad I did, because mine are, right now anyway, top quality, no holes, seams are all solid, nothing's torn, nothing's ripped. And they have gotten me through some of these brutal days. I mean, we had a day where the feels like temperature, right, with the wind chill, was -16. I'm in New Jersey, right? I know -16 is pretty common for some folks. Not here in Jersey. It happens, but it's not common. I used to live in Minneapolis, or in the Minneapolis area, so, I'm familiar with cold weather, right? It's not that shocking to me. But when you're not used to it, right? I haven't been there in over a decade now. -16 is no fun. Those pants were awesome, though. They cut the wind down significantly. They kept me toasty warm to the point where after a couple of barn chores, I was actually sweating a little bit. I can't put them on in the house because by the time I put them on and then walk outside, I'm sweating. That's how warm they are. So I am thrilled with that purchase. I don't know that I'm going to link them or anything because, again, there's been some inconsistencies and some reports on quality control issues that I don't want to perpetuate. Plus, again, they kind of shipped without warning from China, so it took like 2 months to get them. And, so there were a couple of things that were a little sketchy. But overall, I am excited that I have them. I got them on, like the super duper 50% off, buy one, get one free on top of the 50% off sale, which probably should have also told me to do a little more research. But heck, it was Black Friday. Everybody was shopping. I was not necessarily on the market for anything, but it was cheap enough, worth the risk, and I did it. And it worked out for me. So happy day there. So that's Phineas's first side. That actually is not bad. considering I'm 3 weeks overdue. Oh, sorry, muck bucket moving. And not only am I 3 weeks overdue, but it's been wet, cold, snowy. You know, when they get wet, their hair mats a bit more. He's a hot mess on this side. You guys have been looking at all sorts of fun stuff here, haven't you? But honestly, other than these couple of patches up here on both sides of his chest, which, you know, this is where the bulk of his activity is when it comes to feeding and watering, it's not bad. I expected him to take about an hour today, and I don't think that's even going to come close. His hooves were pretty bad, but we got those back into shape. The nice thing about if you keep hooves in shape, even when you get out of routine and you fall behind a bit, there's Bailey running by. He's on the lookout for Tonka. He doesn't really mind the little dogs, but he is definitely on the lookout for Tonka. But, you know, if you keep the hooves maintenanced on a regular basis throughout the year, falling behind a couple of weeks, yes, it's kind of like, you know, if you haven't cut your nails, your own finger or toenails in a while, they're outgrown, they're overgrown, they don't look good, but they're pretty easy to get back into shape. They don't require multiple sessions of grooming to get them back into shape. They just require cutting, trimming, in my case, you know, the drilling, the grinding. So it took me a little bit longer to do his hooves today, certainly, but they fell back into shape really nicely, despite the fact that they were a bit overgrown. So I'm pretty proud of that. I'm happy with that. I shouldn't say proud. I mean, that should be my standard of care. I shouldn't be proud of myself for holding standard of care. The other thing, though, that's been nice that I did not expect, these guys were bathed in October, and you were here with me for it. So if you haven't seen the bathing, go back to October. All the goats got baths. They typically, you know, if I'm having a good year, they get bathed in October and then again in April, May, depending on when the shows are. And that's just coincidental with the timing of our shows. And it also happens to be conveniently a nice spread after winter and before winter, right? So by doing that, full grooming, right? Really, what am I going to say? Really, what was I saying? Really cleaning, conditioning, making sure that every bit of his coat from top to bottom, underneath and everything else was fully groomed and fully conditioned really has made a difference. It's made all the difference in the world in the fact that he has not been groomed in about 9 weeks, maybe 10. No, let's see, you're 3 weeks overdue and they're supposed to be every 6 weeks. So yeah, 9 weeks. So he's, you know, been 9 weeks, which is 3 weeks longer than I want. Ideal, you know, that's ideal, right? Give or take a week, I'm not really worried about. That 3rd week was kind of the killer. But again, kind of the extra yuck here is the winter and the weather that we've had. Excuse me. If it was just a dry winter, he has so much vegetation in his coat. That's really what I'm grooming out more than anything. It's such a dry winter. Their coat just needed that extra conditioning. It really needs the brush out to get the oils stimulated again to help keep it healthy. And that's why you're seeing some of this patchiness back here, is his hair has actually experienced some breakage because of that dry, miserable weather, because of the amount of time. There's Huggy Boogie trotting by. They're all out today. Everybody is out because it's gorgeous. The sun is shining. There's no wind, at least not much wind. So even though it's not really much above freezing, gosh, it feels so good. So at any rate, so his coat really needs some conditioning. I mean, even as I'm brushing it, and I'm happy that I'm able to get everything out of it that I can, and the knots and the mats aren't terrible. I can feel the texture of his coat is much more dry and brittle than it normally is. And That's just winter. Our hair does the same thing. You need some extra conditioning, some extra TLC. He needs it. So I'm glad I didn't have to go much longer, right? I was starting to get worried about that. As the weather wasn't converting from miserable temperatures to something reasonable like today, I was starting to get worried that I was going to have to do something different, right? Either suck it up and make them as miserable as I am grooming in that terrible temperature, or, I don't know, bring them somewhere inside, which is not exactly a prospect that's taken easily with a 120, 130 pound goat, especially a buck who stinks. And he does stink. He doesn't stink nearly as bad as he did when he was in rut, but he did go through rut after his bath, or at least rut continued after his bath. So yeah, he's got some stink on him. And I'm noticing, and I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, he's already shedding out cashmere. So his body is already starting to think spring, which is awesome because maybe that means spring is coming. So yeah, and he's certainly, I'm not worried. He's got some lighter patches here that are unfortunate. If he were a show goat, I'd be devastated, but he no longer needs to show because he's already master champion and best in show. So all this breakage that happened here, this is from rubbing and spending too much time in the stall. The breakage is really from, the terrible dry weather that we've had. So it really is not unexpected. He'll grow it back. Bucks grow hair pretty quickly, at least on the top line here, so this will get covered up pretty quickly. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be covered up quickly enough for the show season this year. I don't have to worry about that. And this is why many, many breeders cut their master champions coat pretty quickly after they earn their master champion, right? Unless they're striving for multiple best in shows, or they're trying to win, the title of winningest goat of the year. Most breeders or larger herds, especially with the bucks, and you've seen it with Thorn, will take that coat and just cut it right off, or shave them even, because they don't want to deal with this kind of maintenance. I mean, that's so much hair. You don't want to deal with this kind of maintenance on a regular basis. I, however, have a very small herd. I only have 2 bucks right now. 3 is my ideal number, but right now we're at 2. And that is something that I am capable of maintaining their coats for. And I prefer to maintain them in their natural form as long as I can, right? You've seen me when I'm doing some groomings. If I find a really bad spot, especially underneath, and the goat is, not going into a show ring and has no reason to be tortured by me trying to brush it out, I'll cut that stuff right off. But I try and keep their length on them as long as possible. Sometimes they help me out and go ahead and kill it on their own. But he was not nearly as bad to groom as I expected, and that's exciting. As I'm doing this, I forgot that I started to talk about decisions, right? Why am I grooming bucks now when I have girls do? So I made the decision to groom the bucks because I really felt that they were going to be in rough shape. And as you're seeing, they're not in terrible shape, but they certainly were getting there. And another week or another few days may have made all the difference in the world. Maybe not. I'll never know because I decided to do the bucks. So I'm doing Thorn next. That puts pressure on me for the girls, right? I really would like to get Denali groomed before she kids. She's due to kid end of next week-ish, right? So her due date's the 24th, so 10 days from now as of this recording. So that puts me in a rush, right? If I wait until next weekend, which would be the normal window for the next grooming, it's possible that she could kid. And she'll be really close to her due date, even if she hasn't kid. If I wait that long, I run the risk of not being able to groom her, which I really prefer not to do if all possible. So I will probably try and get her up on the grooming stand during the work week, which isn't ideal, but as long as the weather holds out, I should be able to make it through. And I really do want to get her done. So I put some pressure on myself to get that. I know I got to do your face, buddy. To get that doe grooming done, and not a non-ideal schedule for me. But the good news is that means that I'll have all sorts of grooming videos back to queued up, and you can get back to having your Saturday morning grooming sessions with me. So I think we're going to cut it there for Finn, because he's clearly about done. He's been really good. You've been so good. And you know, knock wood, his coat wasn't in terrible condition, and I will see you with the next groom with Thorn. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day wherever you are in this world. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, be kind, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye for now.